Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it, as always, is an honor and a privilege to have you with us today here on this Thursday, October the 12th, 2017. Here's how today's show is going to go. I've got an item or two in the world of movies that I want to talk about. After I talk about those, I'm going to go on to the main part of the show, which is taking the topic and questions that you guys send in to me. How do you get a topic or a question on the John Campea Show? It's simple. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Once again, that's john@thejohncampeashow.com. And this is important, guys. Make sure you put the word topic in the subject line. If you don't put the word topic in the subject line, I ain't going to see it. Also, it's very important to keep in mind, keep your emails to 90 words or less, because if it's any longer than that, I don't have time to read it. Plus, I wouldn't be able to physically fit it on the screen. Now, after I'm done taking the topics and questions that you guys have emailed into me, we're doing this show live, so I'm going to save a little bit of time at the end of the show to take the live questions from those of you guys who are watching live. And here's how you get a live question on the show if you're watching live. You're going to tweet to me at John Campea. Don't send it in yet. Wait till a little bit closer to the end of the show. But tweet me at John Campea. Just start your tweet with at John Campea and put in your question. And I will get to just as many of those questions as I can by the end of the show. Okay, guys, with that out of the way, let's get things rolling. And I wanted to start with this. There's a brand new movie out called, at least it's opening up this weekend, called Only the Brave, the true story of the Granite Mountain Hotshots. And it's that firefighter movie that you've probably seen a couple of trailers for. It's got a pretty impressive cast. You're talking about, obviously, Josh Brolin, Jeff Bridges, Taylor Kitsch, Miles Teller, Jennifer Connelly. And it's based on a true story, and I am a sucker for these kind of heroic films based on true stories and real-life heroes. And so, and if anybody of you know about the actual story of the Granite Mountain Hotshots, you know it is a pretty remarkable story, and the stuff that goes down there. And I really do love stories about real heroes. And don't get me wrong, I love my superhero films, I really do, but stories about real-life, real honest-to-God heroes who have saved real lives and saved, real towns and things like that. And this movie is that. It captures the heart of that beautifully. Now, let me talk about, for a second, one of the big negative things about this movie for a minute, okay? And this is the biggest negative thing, and unfortunately, it kind of hangs like a wet blanket over the entire movie. But the big negative thing about this movie is that it is way too many scenes are done too way on the nose. And you can tell that with the dialogue, and especially with the dialogue, because there are certain things in movies that you can tell with an actor's look or with something happening. Show the audience things happening. But here's an example. Let's say you had a movie. Okay, this isn't in Only the Brave, but let's say you've got a movie where the guy's lifelong dream was to make ice cream. And he makes some ice cream and gets his friend to test it. And the point of the scene is to express that the ice cream is not turning out the way that this guy wants it to turn out. A good filmmaker will have somebody taste it and go, it could use some work, and move on like that. There, you've communicated it. The way Only the Brave takes that scene, and again, this scene is not in the movie. I'm just giving you as an example about how this movie treats certain scenes. The way the movie treats that scene is that the guy tastes it and goes, this is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the worst ice cream I've ever had. I know this is your dream to make ice cream, but you need to doubt your dreams now, my friend, because I have tasted your ice cream, and the ice cream is not living up to the worthy name of somebody who wants to produce ice cream for a living and their life. And then it cuts over to the guy. Now I am feeling bad because it is my dream to make ice cream, and I have made some ice cream that you have not liked. Clearly my skills as an ice cream maker might not be up to the snuff of a world-class ice cream maker. You see the difference? One's really on the nose. One is more subtle, but both communicate the same message. And I found over and over and over and over and over again in Only the Brave, they went the other way. They went way over the top, way on the nose, laying out everything in verbal diarrhea that we as an audience member could have picked up with glances or looks or minor things that you show us that we would have got no problem. Instead, the movie hammers you over the head many, many times, oftentimes trying to create false emotionality, if that's even a word, in the film. And that's unfortunate because aside from that one big glaring flaw, and that flaw ruins some of the characters, because the Miles Teller character is actually a fascinating character. And he's a character that has a drug problem. But they do that over your head. It's like, oh man, I'm so high. And look at the way I'm walking down the sidewalk. Like, again, it's that same principle of hammering you over the head. You guys have all seen movies like that, with what it is the director's trying to get across, instead of just giving us subtle things that we as the audience would have had no problem picking up on. And that's unfortunate, because the heart of this movie is really quite beautiful. The heart of the movie is really quite beautiful. And while the director does I think, a very poor job going about communicating and telling that story in certain ways, the story he's telling and the points he is trying to get across, although he does a bad job with how he chooses to get them across, the points and the issues and the narrative turns that he's trying to communicate are really good. And by the end of this film, you do feel like you want to puff your chest out and say humanity can be amazing sometimes when you look at these guys. I think by the end of it, overall, because of the basis of the true story and how remarkable the story is, and you've got actors in there like Jeff Bridges and Josh Brolin and Miles Teller. And Taylor Kitsch is actually great in this movie. And you guys know I think Taylor Kitsch is an underrated performer and an underrated actor. They give some great performances. Jennifer Connelly, I love seeing her pop up in anything she ever appears in. So it was great to see her in there as well. And it's just, the true story is just so good that I still enjoyed the film. I liked the film because of all that stuff. I would have loved the film. I would have been raving about this film if it wasn't for that one big wet blanket issue of every single scene. It felt like had to be the director who's trying to hammer it over your head. And I don't know, maybe that's a script issue, but if it is a script issue, the director should have been wise enough to realize, okay, this is a little too on the nose. We need to bring this back a little bit. We need to scale this back a bit. And once you guys see Only the Brave, and I do recommend you see it, but once you see Only the Brave, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So yeah, overall for me, Only the Brave is a movie worth seeing. Incredible true life story, some solid performances that's just held back from its potential of being a great movie from too much hit you over the head, too on the nose kind of dialogue and didactic kind of scenes and stuff like that, that just unfortunately kind of ruins it from being great, but it's still good. So anyway, if you guys get a chance, go ahead and check it out. All right, moving on now from that movie review, let's get to the first question that you guys have sent in to me. And the first question today that you guys have sent in comes to us from Lori Denis, who writes, With Disney lifting the review embargo for Thor Ragnarok so early, do you think they are trying to crush Justice League, which comes out just 2 weeks later at the box office? Love the show and hope to become a Patreon supporter soon. Well, thank you so much, Lori. I very much appreciate that. So, yes, as you know, we talked about this on the show the other day. Marvel has announced that they are going to lift the review embargo 2 full weeks before the movie comes out. And they've already lifted the social media embargo. So you see the critics are tweeting about this movie all over the place. That tells us a couple things. Number one, it tells us that Marvel was supremely confident that audiences are going to like this movie. And number two, they believe that the word of mouth that gets out there as a result of lifting the review embargo is going to help their movie. Both of which are true. I have seen Thor Ragnarok. I cannot review it yet because the review embargo is on the 19th, but I will tell you what I put in my tweet once again. Thor is relentlessly entertaining. This is an entertaining movie, and I think audiences are really going to love it. Now, I can't say anything else beyond that. Check my review on October 19th, which is actually coming up here. It's just a week away. It's getting closer than you think. Man, this year is flying by fast. Anyway, so the question then becomes, and like, seriously, you would not believe how many times every day I get tweeted about anything that Marvel does, asking the question, did Marvel do this to try to crush DC? Did Marvel release that clip to try to hurt Justice League? Did Marvel just announce this to try to hurt a future DC film? Like, and vice versa. It goes vice versa as well. Let me tell you this right now, though. Marvel lifting the review embargo for Thor has absolutely nothing to do with Justice League whatsoever. Okay, look, you're asking the question. It's a fair question to ask. Is Marvel releasing and trying to get all these positive review outs and attempt to crush Justice League? Let me give you two scenarios, okay? I'm going to give you two scenarios. Play along with me here. And you tell me which scenario you think Marvel would prefer, okay? I'm going to give you two scenarios. You tell me which scenario you think Marvel would prefer, okay? Here we go. Scenario number 1. Thor Ragnarok makes $800 million at the worldwide box office, and Justice League makes $500 million at the US box office, or at the worldwide box office, okay? Scenario 1 is Thor Ragnarok makes $800 million at the worldwide box office, and Justice League makes $500 million at the worldwide box office, okay? We got that? That's scenario 1. Here's scenario number 2. Thor Ragnarok makes $825 million at the worldwide box office, and Justice League makes $1.3 billion at the worldwide box office. Scenario 2, Thor Ragnarok makes $825 million at the worldwide box office, Justice League makes $1.3 billion. Do you think Marvel, if they had a choice, would pick scenario 1, where Thor makes $800 million and Justice League makes $500 million? Or do you think Marvel would select scenario number 2, where Thor Ragnarok makes $825 million and Justice League makes $1.3 billion? The answer is easily scenario 2, because under scenario 2, Marvel gets $25 more million. They don't care if Justice League makes $500 million. They don't care if Justice League makes $1.3 billion. All they care in either scenario 1 or scenario 2 is how much money does this movie right here make, Thor Ragnarok. And if scenario 2 says we get $25 million extra dollars, but the trade-off is that Justice League makes 1.3, God bless Justice League, make 1 point. You go get that money. We'll take our extra $25 million. 9 times out of 9, 1,009 times out of 1,009 times, Marvel will take scenario number 2. Because once again, all they care about is what they are going to make. All Marvel cares about is how much money this movie's going to make. That's all they care about. They don't care about what Justice League makes. They don't care about what Fast and the Furious makes. They don't care about anything else. They only care about what this movie is going to make. Bottom line, because that's the only thing that's going to put money in their pockets. If Justice League flops and makes $8 at the box office, Marvel doesn't get $1 extra. So they don't care. And besides, I always talk about this, but it bears repeating. People need to understand this. Marvel and DC both understand that they don't exist in their own self-contained world. They live in a larger genre known as the comic book movie genre. And for their films to do well, they need the genre to do well. That means if you're Kevin, we've heard Kevin Feige make these direct comments. Kevin Feige says they cheer for DC Comics to do well, DC comic book movies to do well. Because the better DC comic book movies are, the more money Marvel films are going to make. And vice versa. DC knows that. Jeff Johns knows that very well. That, hey, if people get out and see Thor on November 3rd and they have a great time and they love it, then they're going to be more likely to want to come back to the next big superhero movie, which what's that going to be? It's going to be Justice League. So these guys actually cheer for each other. So no, under no circumstance is the fact that Marvel releasing these early reviews meant in any way to hurt Justice League. Them putting out early reviews is all about trying to help Thor Ragnarok's return. That's all it's about. So I don't know. You guys, you have any thoughts on that? Jump into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. I honestly, I just wish Marvel fans and DC fans would get it the way that Jeff Johns and Kevin Feige get it. Jeff Johns and Kevin Feige get it. I don't know why they're like their slave zombie followers don't also get it, because the two head honchos get it. I wish they would get it too. Anyway, okay, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Farman Siddiqui, who writes, John, love your show. Thank you so much, Farman. My question is, Do you really believe in superhero fatigue? Since the start of 2016, we have had 10 superhero movies, and they have all been global successes. There is no sign of them slowing down, too. Does superhero movie fatigue really exist? Thanks, and I wanted you to know you've got many fans halfway around the world here in Dubai. Well, thank you so much, Farman. I really appreciate that. And this is a topic that comes up all the time. Like, if you are in any movie chat board, if you are in any movie comment section whatsoever, you see this topic come up all the time. Superhero movie fatigue, superhero movie fatigue, superhero movie fatigue. I've been hearing this since 2013. Every year, this next year is going to be the last year for really big comic book movies because superhero fatigue. I've been hearing that year after year after year after year. You know when you can talk to me about superhero movie fatigue? When a good superhero movie does poorly and loses money at the box office. Not when Fantastic Four, actually, I think it was profitable. Anyway, but you can talk to me and we can start having a serious discussion about the possibility of superhero movie fatigue once a good superhero movie comes out and it doesn't do well at the box office. It loses money for the studio. So when, Wonder Woman 2 comes out, and if Wonder Woman 2 is good, let's say it's as good as the first Wonder Woman movie, and it makes $205 million worldwide, okay, at that point, we can start having a discussion about superhero movie fatigue. But when we live in an era when a movie called Ant-Man can make nearly $600 million worldwide, when we live in an era when, a Batman versus Superman movie, which was poorly received by critics and fans, yet still cracks $800 million. When we live in an era where a bad movie like Fantastic Four comes out and it still makes in the hundreds of millions of dollars. When we live in that era, you cannot have a serious discussion about comic book movie fatigue. You just can't. When these types of dollars are being thrown around, and dollars isn't about money, dollars is about audience interest in going to the movies to see these films. That's what dollars equal. Some people ask me, John, why do you put such a heavy importance on how much money a movie makes? Because how much money a movie makes directly tells us how much of the audience was interested in going out to see it. So as long as we're living in an economy, in a superhero movie economy, where they crank out film after film after film after film, and they all make money. Some are good, some are great, some are world class, and they all make money. You cannot have a serious discussion about comic book movie fatigue. You just can't. Now, Thor Ragnarok comes out, makes $300 million worldwide. Justice League comes out, makes $405 million worldwide. Okay, maybe then we can have some discussions. But until that happens, and that hasn't happened yet, I'm getting tired of this thing of every single year after year after year after year. Oh, this next year is going to be the one. The year comes and goes. Comic book movies are still the number one box office movies. Then the next year, oh, but this year is going to be the year the comic book movie fatigue sets in. All the comic book movies come out, all of them smash at the box office. Oh, but this year will be the year that it happens. And it just, guys, when a good comic book movie comes out that critics and audiences all like, and it does badly at the box office and loses money for their studio, then we can begin the discussion of comic book movie fatigue. Until that happens, you can't keep a straight face and say the phrase comic book movie fatigue, because all the numbers point completely against it. Anyway, that's just my point on that. Thanks a lot for the question. Okay, let's now move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Anthony Paquin, who writes, greetings from Oshawa, Ontario, home of the Oshawa Generals. Are they still a thing? They should be. With Universal's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Jason Statham-centric Fast and Furious spinoff recently being announced, I wanted to know your thoughts on it as a concept. I'm excited for it because Johnson's Hobbs and Statham's Shaw had arguably the best chemistry in F8 and made for some of the best moments too. Thanks, and keep up the great work. Well, thanks a lot for the question, man. I really appreciate it. And yeah, man, There's been so much drama. First of all, let me address your question directly, but then let me address a connected issue that seems to be floating around a lot, okay? So the connected issue, am I for the idea of a Hobbs Shaw movie? Damn right. And I completely agree with you. I think the Dwayne Johnson, Jason Statham stuff in F8 was the best part of that Fantastic Furious. I've just mentioning Fantastic Four. Anyway, the Fantastic Furious franchise. Yes, I believe that their stuff was the best stuff. As a matter of fact, I believe one of my criticisms of the movie coming out was you never really gave me a big payoff with Hobbs and Shaw. Like, they did a lot of teasing and a lot of effort and got me ramped up for it, but we never really got the payoff for it whatsoever. And that was one of my big complaints about F8. I wanted to see that, and I still want to see that, and I'm excited for it. I think, I'll be honest with you, as an audience member, I'm more excited to see the Hobbs, Shaw, Dwayne Johnson, Jason Statham movie than I am to see F9. Maybe that puts me in the minority. That's fine. I have no problem being in the minority from time to time. But I'm actually more excited about that movie than I am about F9. So yeah, I'm with you on that. But we'd be remiss if we didn't at least mention some of the drama going on surrounding this Hobbs Shaw movie spinoff and F9. And as you know, F9 has been pushed back to 2020, much to the chagrin of one Green Lantern wannabe, Therese Gibson, who very oddly took to social media to complain and call Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson selfish. It's like, how dare you do that standalone movie? It's selfish. You should be about the crew. You should want to get F9 out. First of all, let's clear a couple of things up. No matter how popular Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is, no matter how popular any actor is, never overestimate how much power they have in the business. When it comes to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and the most no-name of movie executives, the most no-name of movie executives has 10 times the power that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson does. If they're doing a Hobbs Shaw movie before I keep on wanting to say Fantastic Furious, Fast and the Furious 9, if the studio wants to do that, that's what's going to happen. Unless Dwayne Johnson says, no, I don't want to do the film, which is fine. But Dwayne Johnson does not have the power just to walk into a studio and say, make this movie and put it out on this date. You know, the executives are going to go, hey, Dwayne, sort yourself out. That's what the movie executives are going to do. He doesn't have that kind of power. So I think what is really eating at Tyrese here is that Dwayne Johnson has said, yeah, I'll do it. And he's excited about doing it. And Tyrese saying, you should have turned it down. You should have said no. That is the most selfish, self-centered thing I have ever heard. First of all, Tyrese. I am a big fan of Tyrese. Tyrese is one of my favorite things in the Fast and Furious movies. As a matter of fact, I think they underuse Tyrese in these movies. I really enjoy him in these movies. But let's not beat around the bush here. If it wasn't for the Fantastic Furious film franchise, the Fast and the Furious film franchise, half of us watching this program right now would not even know the name Tyrese Gibson. We wouldn't even know who he is. So be very grateful for this franchise. Also, is this the same guy? This guy who is complaining about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson being selfish for trying to get his movie made. Isn't this the same guy who for the past 2 or 3 years has been desperately, pathetically begging online for the studios to make him Green Lantern? Like trying to push out other people that the studios are looking at for the role? Isn't this the exact same guy who has basically been getting on his hands and knees, tearing his clothes with his hands full, going, please let me be Green Lantern, please? Isn't this the same guy who's now complaining about another actor not turning down a movie? Isn't this the same guy? Like, there's a bit of hypocrisy there. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't care about that. I mean, Tyrese, I still enjoy him on the screen. When he does pop up in F9, I'm going to be happy to see him there. And I want to see him do other things. I think he's got a lot of natural charm and charisma. As a matter of fact, I think he's probably maybe in the top 10 to 15 of not pure talent. No. But of pure, like, charm and charisma when he's on the screen. The king of that, of course, is this guy, The Rock. But I think Tyrese has a lot of charm and charisma. that can carry him a long way when he's in movies and stuff like that. I like him. I'm going to continue to watch him, but this whole thing's getting silly. And here's the thing. I think this type of nonsense is putting the brand of Fast and the Furious in danger. Because up until now, the whole spine, if you will, of the whole Fast and Furious franchise has been family, brotherhood, on camera and off camera. The family wept when Paul Walker died. I mean, you could feel the pain throughout that entire Fast and Furious family. You could feel it. And this whole thing of brotherhood and we're a family and blah, 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 blah. And if that's the groundwork, if that's the basis for this franchise, and you've got Tyrese running around causing all this drama, complaining and whining and moaning and all this kind of stuff, then that's got to stop because you're going to damage the brand. And, Vin Diesel's come out. He's been trying to do damage control. Full marks to Vin Diesel as the leader of this franchise. And he's been trying to do damage control. But, dudes, you got to reel Tyrese in. And if you're Tyrese, you're just hurting yourself, man. You've got to stop this nonsense. Anyway, that's just my thought on this whole drama of Tyrese and The Rock and stuff like that. What do you guys think? Jump into the comments section and let me know your thoughts. No, I don't like to talk about this, celebrity feuds gossip, but I believe this is an issue that will directly affect the brand. And that is relevant. That is important. And that's why I thought I would bring it up here and talk about this today, because I think this will affect the brand. And you cannot affect the brand. You've got to protect the brand, because the brand puts bread on your table. So you got to be very protective of it, and I think they're being very reckless with it right now. All right, sorry for that long-winded thing. Let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Spacetime, and Spacetime writes, "Hey John, big fan from France." Oh, thank you so much. Je m'appelle Jean, comment t'appelles-tu? I am worried that Superman's comeback will make the others feel inept. Example. It seems Wonder Woman's role is to get beaten by Steppenwolf to show how threatening he is, then have Kal-El defeat him to prove how needed and all-powerful he is. The Leaguers shouldn't have to be sacrificed on the Superman the Savior altar. Are my worries unfounded? Well, yes, I do think your worries are unfounded, but I think they're unfounded not because I don't think that Superman is ultimately going to show up and save the day. I do believe that Justice League is going to set up for Superman to return and save the day. I believe that. But I believe that your worries are unfounded in the sense that, one, we shouldn't have a problem with that. Number two, I don't think what's going to happen is that Superman shows up and it turns out he doesn't need the Justice League. He can just take out Steppenwolf and all of his parademons and every threat all by himself. The way, if I had to guess, and I'm just taking a guess, I don't have any insider knowledge on this, okay? I'm just guessing. The way I'm guessing that this is going to work out is that, yeah, the Justice League cannot handle Steppenwolf. They can't handle him. But he's not the only problem. You've also got an army of parademons that are going to overthrow and terrorize and destroy the world. So the way I think it'll probably work out is the Justice League is losing, trying to fight all the parademons and the big bad guy. And they're kind of losing ground trying to do all that at once. Superman comes back, Superman deals with the big bad guy, but he wouldn't be able to deal with it all on his own. So while Superman is dealing with him, because clearly we know Steppenwolf has a little bit of a worry spot with Kryptonians, because we hear in that Justice League trailer, there are no Kryptonians here, so everything's cool. So obviously he doesn't want a Kryptonian there. So I believe while Superman is dealing with the big baddie, then Justice League can focus on the things that Superman can't take care of, which is the army of parademons. That's the way I think it's going to happen. It's probably going to be 50 times different than that, but that's just kind of my assumption. But again, I think your worries are unfounded because, number one, Superman is the savior of the world. But number two, I don't think they're going to set it up that Superman shows up and the Justice League just aren't needed, that Superman can handle all this by himself. No, I think the scenario that Justice League will get us to is that Superman can't save the world without the Justice League, and the Justice League can't save the world without Superman. And I think that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. And maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out here pretty soon. Okay, let's move on to the last email question of the day, and then I'm going to go over to the live chat, to the live Twitter that you guys who are watching live are sending in your tweets, so you can start sending in your tweets now. And the next question today comes to us from Sarah E. Anderson, and Sarah E. Anderson writes, Hey, John, liking the YouTube show. Thank you so much, Sarah. My question has to do with the question you talked about anime adaptation to live action being the next big thing. You brought up Ghost in the Shell and Death Note. But John, these movies had the backlash of being whitewashed, and rightfully so. Do you think that is why anime live adaptations won't be the next big thing because, as you put it, there is no bankable Asian stars? Well, thanks a lot for the question. And for those of you who don't know, and I'm just going to bring up here, because I've got a thought here, but I need to look up some information here. Okay, so the question came up the other day. Somebody asked, do I think that, anime to live action could become the next big thing in the vein of comic book movies, in the vein of comic book movies, in the vein of video game movies, that could anime become the next big thing? To which I replied, no. While there are very active, vibrant fan communities of anime, it's not as big of a community as you think. The average movie-going audience member is not into anime, and I don't think has an interest in this. One of the things I brought up was like, look, they did Ghost in the Shell. Death Note didn't get as many viewers as they were hoping. We obviously had a Dragon Ball Z movie before that crashed and burned. Now, what Sarah is bringing up is a legitimate question to ask. She's asking, but didn't those fail because of the whitewashing controversies? No. I think it would be naive. Not that you're a naive person, not at all. But I think it would be a naive action to believe that Ghost in the Shell would have made $200 million more if it wasn't Scarlett Johansson in the lead. I think that would be a naive thought. I don't think what kept people away from Death Note was the fact that it took place in America, as opposed to taking place somewhere else. I don't think any of that had, at most, maybe a 2% difference. At most, I think the controversy might have swung at 2%. But you were not going to get any more of the mainstream audience out to see Ghost in the Shell. And if you want a genre to be the next big thing, forget the core audience. You've got to get the general movie-going audience. And guess what? The general movie, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I think you will agree with me when I say this. The general movie-going audience doesn't care. They just care about whether the movie looks good to them or not. That's all the general movie-going audience cares about. And if you couldn't get the general movie-going audience interested in going to seeing Ghost in the Shell with one of the most bankable actresses in the business today with Scarlett Johansson, you think they would have suddenly become interested in it because it was an Asian actress? Again, I'm not talking about the right or the wrong of it. That's a worthy discussion to have, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm simply asking the question, do you think the throngs of the average movie-going audience who didn't come out to see Ghost in the Shell, despite the fact that it had maybe the most bankable female action star in movies today in Scarlett Johansson, you think they suddenly would have come out in masses if there had been, say, an Asian actress that they weren't familiar with or didn't know? Do you think that would have turned the tide? Do you think that would have made the difference? It would not have made the difference. And again, I'm not talking about the issue of whitewashing. Those are issues and discussions worth having, absolutely. But I'm just talking about the dollars and cents of it. The bottom line is, if you think that the average movie-going audience would have come out in more droves had it not been Scarlett Johansson, I think you're fooling yourself. I really do. So let's look at something else that is not anime, but is kind of living in the same type of situation. Power Rangers, right? I remember when they announced Power Rangers and I said, this movie is a stupid idea. People are not going to rush out to see Power Rangers. And I got so much hate mail. Oh my God, I got so much hate mail. John, you're an idiot. Power Rangers is going to make $800 million. Power Rangers is going to crack $1 billion. You don't know, John. Power Rangers fans rule the world. I'm like, no, they don't. It's not going to make a lot of money. Now, I also thought Power Rangers was going to be a bad film. And I went to go see Power Rangers and like, oh my God, I like this Power Rangers movie. I think this Power Rangers movie is pretty good. And I did. I like the Power Rangers movie. Go figure. I liked it. But do you know how much Power Rangers made worldwide? This is what I was bringing up a little bit earlier. Power Rangers worldwide made $142 million worldwide. It lost a lot of money. And that movie was pretty good. It wasn't even bad. I liked it. I liked the Power Rangers movie. And now, Power Rangers is not anime, but it's the same type of scenario. You have this niche genre that has a passionate, loyal fan base, whose passionate, loyal fan base, let's face it, we all do this, their passionate, loyal fan base overestimated how popular the object of their passion was worldwide. And you had everybody thinking that Power Rangers was going to make $1 billion. It was never going to make $1 billion. Power Rangers was never going to make $600 million. It was never going to happen. And they put out a good movie. And it did. And I think, when we're looking at things like whether it's Death Note or Ghost in the Shell and the delays now happening with Akira and all that kind of nonsense, I just think if you think the problem is whitewashing, and whitewashing is a problem, but that's a separate problem. If you think the box office return problem is because of whitewashing, I think you're fooling yourself. I do not think that's the issue. The issue is that the general movie-going audience just aren't all that into Power Rangers. The general movie-going audience just isn't all that into anime. That does not downgrade how great Power Rangers is. That does not downgrade how great anime is. The fact that hardly anybody likes and watches Supernatural the way I do, but I'm passionate about Supernatural. I love it. I'm shamelessly say it's my favorite show on television. I love Supernatural. And it's no downgrade, and it doesn't hurt the quality of Supernatural for me to admit that, hey, the general audience out there isn't into Supernatural. That's okay. I still love it. I don't need everybody else to love it for me to love it, but I just got to acknowledge that you turn Supernatural into a motion picture next week, it ain't making $300 million. It'll be lucky to make $60 million. It would be lucky to make $60 million. And that's not a commentary on how good or bad Supernatural is. I think it's awesome. Nor is saying that I don't think anime is going to become the next big live action adaptation thing in theaters. That is in no way a knock on anime at all or its quality. I'm just saying that there are people who are into it and there are people who are not. So anyway, I'm sure you guys have lots of passionate opinions about this. Jump down into the comments section and leave your thoughts. What do you think about this? Jump down on in there and let me know what you think. All right, guys, with that stuff out of the way, I am now going to go over to the Twitter board. Give me a second to open it up here, and I'm going to pull up the first question. And the first question today, here we go. Who's it come from? Remember, I don't have time to screen these. Random Indian G. Some of your guys' Twitter names, I swear to God, are just awesome. Anyway, Random Indian G writes, do you think James Cameron's Avatar will be a full CGI movie? Great question. At least, I'd say the first sequel. Look, at some point, the human armies are going to come back, right? At some point, the human armies, they're not going to let that unobtainium sit there unmined. At some point, the human armies are going to come back. But the first Avatar sequel, I'll give it a 40% chance that it is all digital. That there are no live action actors in it, that every actor who's in the film is actually just doing motion capture. It's a great point to bring up. Now, it's maybe by the second sequel, third sequel, the human armies show back up and all that kind of stuff. We know that the villain is coming, the Colonel is coming back, but is he coming back in human form, or is he also going to be morphed into some kind of, natural creature of Pandora? Who knows? We don't know that yet. But I think there's a solid 40% chance that the first Avatar sequel could be an all CGI film. Okay, let's bring up the next one. And this next one comes to us from R. Drago66, who writes, what franchise is in worse shape after their fifth entry underperformed at the box office this year? Pirates or Transformers? Transformers. Pirates was not, the fifth Pirates movie was not bad. I didn't think it was bad. I think I enjoyed that Pirates movie the most out of any Pirates movie other than the first one, because the first one's great. I mean, everybody knows the first Pirates is great, but I thought this one wasn't bad. It still made huge bank at the box office. It made more money than Transformers did. I'm pretty positive. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty positive the newest Pirates movie made more money than the Transformers movie. But the Transformers movie has just been abysmal garbage, like just horrible. So I would say that the franchise that's in worse shape right now is probably Transformers. All right, let's bring up the next one. The next one comes to us from Nathan Van Door, who writes, have you seen the new movie Stronger? I saw it last night and thought it was pretty good. I know you like true stories. No, I didn't. I was supposed to go to a press screening of Stronger the day that I left to go do some volunteer stuff in Las Vegas. So I missed it and I never got back on the train. And I remember, I think it was the other day I was looking for it at my local theater and it was already gone. So I didn't see it. I heard great things about it, but that is one of the movies that I unfortunately missed out on. Okay, let's see this. I already took a question from Random Indian G. So let's go down to Poke Lab YT, who writes, or maybe Poke is supposed to be Poke. I don't know. John, why do you think so many films choose to release around October, November this year? Is it because of the Star Wars The Last Jedi, perhaps? Yeah. I think a lot of movies were looking to get out of the way to that freight train called Star Wars The Last Jedi. Not to mention that, look, I think the October releases were to stay out of the way of the Thor and Justice League storm that's coming. Think about this. What a great 4 or 5 week period for moviegoers, particularly us genre moviegoing fans, right? Within one 4 or 5 week window, we are going to get to go to the theater and watch Thor Ragnarok, Justice League, and Star Wars Episode 8, all within about 5 weeks. What a glorious window for movie fans. But yes, I do think that Star Wars and the juggernaut that it is has, made people just want to stay clear a little bit. Also, the October stuff wanted to stay clear of that Thor and Justice League things because they're going to do their own bits of damage in there. Okay, let's go to this. Next one comes to us from Zane Drake 2016, who writes, John, who is your favorite Spider-Man portrayal and why? It's a good question. You know what? I go back and forth on it. I really do. I go back and forth. I think, for instance, maybe the best Peter Parker has been Tobey Maguire. I think maybe the best Spider-Man has been Tom Holland. But I think the best overall average between the two, like who did the best job of both portraying Peter Parker and Spider-Man, I think is Andrew Garfield. So it really depends. Pure up, straight up best Peter Parker, I think that's Tobey Maguire. Pure straight up best Spider-Man, I think that's Tom Holland. Who did the best in general of kind of combining the two? I think it's Andrew Garfield. So I have liked every Spider-Man we've had so far. I've been a fan of all of them. I don't think we've had a single weak link in the chain. We've certainly had some weak movies here and there, but I don't think there's been a weak link in the chain of our actors who have portrayed Spider-Man for us. And I think we're really lucky that way. Let's see. Next one comes us from Rinks N8, who writes, John, who do you think will be the better pilot, Poe or Kylo? Poe. I think Poe, despite the fact that Kylo Ren has the Force, I think Poe is going to end up being like the best fighter pilot in the galaxy. I think that's the way they're going to portray that. Okay, let's try another one here. And this one comes to us from Quinn David 9, who writes, John, in your opinion, who do you think could be the villain in the Batman? I think who could it be? Could be anybody. Could be Riddler, could be the KG Beast, could be Scarecrow, could be Joker, could be Riddler, could be Penguin, could be Catwoman, could be anybody. I really don't know. We know so little about the upcoming Batman film. We don't even know for sure who's going to be Batman in the upcoming Batman film. I still think it's a 50-50 shot that it's Ben Affleck, but I only think it's a 50-50 shot, and then I don't think it's going to be Batman anymore after that. And with the latest stuff coming out with Ben, maybe he won't, maybe that 50% chance drops down to a 20% chance. I have no idea. But we know nothing about this movie. Need to find out a little bit more. I think Riddler would be interesting, depending on what type of Riddler they decided to do, and their incarnation of Riddler could be interesting. All right, next one. CN344. John, favorite Jim Carrey movie? Thoughts on mine, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Do you think it should have gotten a Best Picture nom? Hard to say. I would have to pull up the list of films that did get Best Picture nominations that year, because it all depends on whether or not there were other films more deserving than Eternal Sunshine. Eternal Sunshine's great. I still think my all-time favorite Jim Carrey movie is the first Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. I'm sorry, that movie is so crazy entertaining. Just pure entertainment, that movie. It's so great. It's so underrated. I think it's one of the classics. So yes, to this day, my favorite Jim Carrey movie still remains the first Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. All right, next one. We'll take just a couple more here. A Clay 19 writes, John, with Jon Favreau directing The Lion King, do you think he will still direct The Jungle Book 2? It all depends on Star Wars. It all depends on if Lucasfilm decides to give Jon Favreau, and if Disney decides to give Jon Favreau a Star Wars film. And if Jon Favreau wants to do a Star Wars film. If they do, then no, he will not do Jungle Book 2. If they do not, then yes, I believe he will do Jungle Book 2 because he's having crazy success with this format. And let's see how Lion King does. If Lion King is just as good, who knows? The lights out, no limit. Next question, Game Light. John, are you going to see The Foreigner this weekend? I'm dying to see The Foreigner. I think the trailers have been bonkers good. I'm hearing some mediocre reviews about it, but I don't care. I think the trailers and the previews for The Foreigner, that's the new Jackie Chan, Pierce Brosnan film, have looked outstanding. And I love a good father out for righteous vengeance movies. I'm all about dads who are pissed. I don't know why. I've always dug that. Movies about dads who are really pissed off because you did something to one of their kids. I don't know. There's something about, I've said this before, there's something about righteous vengeance movies that I just love. And this movie looks like it could be one. I'm a big Jackie Chan fan, so that helps too. Okay, 2 more questions and we're going to call it a day, guys. This next one comes to us from Elijah A, who writes, John, would you want Marvel Studios to trade the Inhumans for a Fantastic Four with Fox? Come on. Why would Fox make that trade? Why would Fox make that trade? Seriously. It's like saying, hey, John, if you're the head of, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you've got this 6th string linebacker who will never play a day named Eddie Bill. That's his name, Eddie Bill, and he's like the worst player in the league. Would you trade Eddie Bill to New England for Tom Brady? Well, of course I would if I'm Eddie Bill, but there's no way in hell that New England's going to make that trade. Why would Fox want the Inhumans? Why would they want the Inhumans? So that trade doesn't happen because nobody wants Inhumans. Nobody wants Inhumans. And you can make the argument, well, Fantastic Four isn't exactly a huge property right now too. Yeah, but Fantastic Four has loads more potential than Inhumans does. And Marvel just kind of ran Inhumans into the ground. So no, I don't think that trade ever gets made. All right, and the final question today. Nick Van Gogh 32 writes, John, you can only watch movies from one studio. Which do you choose? Indiana Jones is still considered Lucasfilm, right? Okay, then I'll go Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm would be number 1, because then I can watch all my Star Wars movies and my Indiana Jones movies. And number 2 would probably be Pixar, because they just they crap out quality. I mean, Pixar just craps out quality. So, number 1 would be Lucasfilm. Number 2 would probably be Pixar. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for joining today and all the discussion going on in the live chat board and sending in all those tweets. I really appreciate it, guys. I will, of course, be back again tomorrow. Hey, a little bit of a programming note for those of you who are team member Patreon supporters. I had announced that we were going to do our live team member Patreon live chat today at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. However, something came up with one of the studios. I know this has happened before. I'm sorry, but I need to bump that to 3 p.m. I will also send out a message to all team member Patreon supporters, but our weekly live chat today will be held at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time instead of 1 p.m., but I will once again send out an email to everybody to make sure everybody's on the same page and we know what's going on. All right, guys, listen, while you're here, do me a favor, take a second. If you like my videos, help them out. Click the thumbs up button. Make sure you jump into the comments section, leave a thought. And remember, feel free to engage in disagreement and debate and argue. That's one of the best things about being film fans. But remember, at the end of the day, we're all family, man. We're brothers and sisters. We're all film fans together. Let's embrace our different opinions and celebrate them and not get into petty name calling and stuff like that. And I'm really proud of our comments section for most of the time about how you guys conduct that. I think you guys are amongst the most mature film fans in the world. So let's do that too. And while you guys are here, why don't you take a second, click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to my YouTube channel, spread my videos around if you like them, share them on Facebook and on YouTube. Follow me on Facebook and YouTube, simply at John Campea. That'll do it for me for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, bye-bye.